I froze as the doorbell camera lit up my phone again. Another package was gone. I opened the footage, expecting another delivery glitch. But there she was. Sofia Wilson, the self-proclaimed queen of Maplewood Estates, strutting up my porch in her pink blazer like she owned the block. She glanced left, right, and without hesitation scooped up my box and walked off with that smirk that said, "What are you going to do about it?" That was the fourth time this month. My daughter's Christmas gift, my medication, even a set of tools I needed for work. But this time I wasn't just angry. I was calculating. She thought her HOA title made her untouchable, that she could rewrite the rules for everyone else. She was wrong, because soon Sofia Wilson would learn what happens when you steal from a man who builds his own justice, one die pack at a time. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And make sure you're subscribed, because this is one HOA revenge story you don't want to miss. I'd moved into Maplewood Estates 6 months after the divorce. I wanted peace. Neat lawns, picket fences. The kind of quiet suburb you see in real estate ads where nothing dramatic ever happens. For a while, it was exactly that. Mornings with coffee on the porch, the old man across the street watering his lilies, and the mailbox that finally fit all my junk mail. Then the packages started vanishing. The first time, I blamed the courier. The second time, I blamed bad luck. By the third, when my prescription vanished, suspicion began to eat away at the polite smile I wore for my neighbors. So, I installed a doorbell camera, a small, ugly lens that would tell me the truth. When the footage came in, I told myself I'd imagined it, but there she was, Sofia Wilson. Blonde hair pulled into that too-tight ponytail, pink blazer glowing in the morning sun. She glanced casually at the street, bent down, and lifted my box like she was rescuing a lost puppy, not stealing someone else's property. I replayed the moment again and again. First came disbelief, then anger, and finally, cold calculation. She wasn't random. She was methodical. Every Thursday morning between 10 and 11, she struck just after deliveries arrived, just before people returned from errands. She was a thief with a schedule. I showed the footage to George, my neighbor across the street, a retired cop with a bad knee and a wicked sense of humor. He watched the video once, rubbed his chin, and said quietly, "That's her. But, you sure you want to make waves? She's powerful around here. She writes the rules." "I just want my stuff back," I said. We went door to door, first to Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who'd lived here forever. Her cardigan was the color of faded lavender. She told us she'd lost her grandson's birthday present. She'd even asked Sofia about it once. Sofia had replied sweetly, "If it's missing, file a report. We're just trying to keep the neighborhood safe." That safe line burned into my brain. I called the non-emergency police line. They listened politely, then told me they couldn't prove intent without recovered property. "If more victims come forward, bring them," they said. Bureaucracy. Paper over truth. Meanwhile, Sofia doubled down, presiding over every HOA meeting like a queen guarding her throne. A week later, I found a notice taped to my door. Mailbox not compliant with HOA standards. Then another. Grass exceeds maximum height. She was sending a message. I run this place. Soon, the neighborhood Facebook page buzzed with rumors, blurry photos of a woman in a pink blazer, whispers of missing deliveries. But the posts vanished quickly, deleted by moderators. Everyone knew why: fear. Sofia controlled permits, approvals, and fines. She didn't need muscle. She had paperwork. That's what protects bullies. Other people's silence. I started keeping a log, dates, times, what was stolen, who else had complained. By the fourth incident, the footage was undeniable. Sofia again, confident, casual, entitled. I sent copies to the police, but they said the same thing. Without proof she intended to steal, it's a civil matter. Civil matter. That phrase made my teeth grind. When the patrol car visited her driveway, I watched from my window. Two officers, polite and careful. Sofia met them in her robe, acting shocked. They left after 5 minutes, no charges. When I caught one of them later, he said, "She claims she was collecting misdelivered packages. Says she's head of HOA security." I laughed bitterly. "You saw the video," he sighed. Intent's hard to prove. Behind him, Sofia stood in her window, phone to her ear, smirking. The next morning, another bright yellow violation notice appeared on my door. Then another. And another. It wasn't harassment anymore. It was war. At the next HOA meeting, I confronted her in front of everyone. Sofia sat at the head of the fake marble table, flanked by board members who nodded before she even spoke. "Mr. Davis," she said sweetly, "the HOA isn't responsible for private deliveries." "I have footage," I said, placing my phone on the table. "You were in my driveway. You took them." Her smile didn't flinch. "I was returning misplaced parcels. As HOA president, I'm authorized to ensure community safety. If you keep spreading false accusations," she added, "I'll have to consider this harassment." "Go ahead," I said. The next morning, another violation notice appeared. "Jose visible in yard." That night, I scrolled through the Facebook group again, posts about missing packages, photos of someone in a pink blazer. Fear was cracking. Mrs. Chen messaged me privately. She took my granddaughter's gift. I saw her. I was afraid to speak. That was the moment I snapped. George dropped by with a six-pack. "You look like a man planning something," he said. "I'm done being polite," I told him. He grinned. "Then you'll need proof she can't wash off." And that's when the idea hit me. I'd seen videos online, glitter bombs, stink sprays, motion-activated traps. Funny, but temporary. I wanted something symbolic, something that stuck. Then I stumbled across an article about security dye packs, the kind banks use to mark robbers with indelible ink. The more they scrub, the deeper it stains. Perfect, only problem. They're not exactly available on Amazon. So I called an old college buddy. "Brian Keller, now a security engineer. John Davis from Purdue." He laughed when he picked up. "Thought you were dead or married." "Divorced," I said. "And alive. But I've got a thief problem." He chuckled. "What, some kid stealing newspapers?" "Worse. HOA president, middle-aged, drives a white SUV, steals packages like she's doing community service." He whistled. "That's specific. You want revenge?" "I want consequences," I said. 2 hours later, I had a full blueprint, a safe DIY dye trap, UV reactive pigment, protein binding compound, glycerin, stabilizer, spring trigger release. That weekend, my garage became a lab. The first test blew up early, painting my arm violet for 3 days. The second worked better. The third, perfection. A hollowed-out hardcover book, a tiny capsule, a delayed release trigger. When I tested it, a brilliant purple-yellow cloud filled the air like fireworks. I laughed until my ribs hurt. It was poetic. Sofia's pattern was predictable, mid-morning on weekdays. So I started ordering decoy packages, fake jewelry, candles, random Amazon boxes, to re-establish trust. She took the bait twice without incident. I wanted her confident. Friday, I prepped the final trap. A small box labeled Luxury Spa Products, Fragile. Inside, the perfected dye device and a hidden camera for evidence. That night, I texted George a picture. Me. "Tomorrow's the day." George. "You sure?" Me. "I'm past sure." George. "You're insane." I love it. Thursday morning came bright and calm. I cleaned the porch, set the box where she'd expect it, and brewed my coffee. At exactly 10:45 a.m., her spotless white SUV rolled into view. She stepped out, pink blazer, sunglasses, phone to her ear, same confident stride. She didn't even glance around, just scooped up the package and walked off like it was her morning routine. I smiled and waited. If my timing was right, she'd open it inside her house. The delay trigger would give her plenty of time to be alone when justice bloomed. 5 minutes, 10, nothing. Then my phone buzzed. A text from George. George. "Dude, she's purple." I nearly spilled my coffee laughing. He sent a photo. Sofia Wilson. The queen herself standing in her driveway. screaming into her phone, drenched from head to toe in violet and bright yellow. Her pristine blazer looked like a tie-dye explosion. Her hands, her neck, even her hair glowed. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Someone filmed from across the street. George yelled from his porch, "You wanted undeniable proof. I guess you got it." Sofia spun toward him, shouting, "So, stop recording. This is private property." He laughed. "You're standing in your driveway, lady." She tried to wipe it off. Mistake. The more she scrubbed, the more it spread. Her SUV door handles turned violet under her hands as she sped off down the street, screaming. I leaned against my door frame, sipping coffee, and whispered, "Poetic justice never sleeps." For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt free. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. Everyone had seen the video. Screenshots of Sofia, her hands and face glowing purple, flooded Facebook. The captions were merciless. Maplewood's new fashion trend. HOA, helping ourselves always. Queen Sofia goes punk. I didn't post anything. I didn't have to. The truth was loud enough without my voice. When I stepped outside to grab my paper, for once, it was actually there. George was across the street, mug in hand, grinning like a kid. "You see Facebook yet?" He shouted. I shook my head. He laughed. "You're a legend, man. Half the neighborhood thinks you're Batman. The other half thinks you're insane. Maybe I was both." Later, I opened the neighborhood page. Sofia had posted a long statement. "Yesterday, I was the victim of a malicious prank involving a tampered package. Someone in this community clearly intends to harm me and the HOA. This will not go unpunished." The comments were brutal. "Funny how the victim has purple hands." "Pretty. Sure, the only thing you were tampering with was our mail. You did this to yourself?" "Sofia." For the first time since I'd moved there, people weren't scared to speak. The fear that had ruled every mailbox and HOA meeting was cracking apart. By noon, a patrol car pulled into her driveway. I watched from my porch as 2 officers stepped out. Sofia was waiting for them, her face still streaked violet beneath layers of makeup. She pointed toward my house twice while waving her arms dramatically. A few minutes later, they approached me. "Morning, Mr. Davis," one of them said, trying not to smile. "Mrs. Wilson reported an incident involving a package." "Of course," I said, motioning them inside. "Would you like to see the footage?" I showed them everything, Sofia walking up, taking the box, the delayed detonation. They watched in silence until one of them chuckled. "So she stole it?" "Exactly," I said. "The dye was a deterrent, not a weapon." They exchanged a look, suppressing laughter. Seemed self-inflicted. When they left, Sofia was still shouting from her porch. They didn't look convinced. By that evening, the HOA chat exploded. "Emergency board meeting tonight. All members required." The clubhouse was packed when I arrived. Neighbors who'd avoided meetings for years showed up, phones ready to record. Sofia sat at the head of the table, oversized sunglasses hiding the stains she couldn't scrub away. She called the meeting to order with a trembling voice. "I have been unjustly humiliated by a resident who used a dangerous chemical device," George interrupted from the crowd. "You mean the resident whose mail you stole?" Laughter rippled through the room. "It was your theft that triggered it," he said. "That's not assault, Sofia. That's karma." Mrs. Chen stood next, holding a small folder. Her voice quivered but steady. "You took my granddaughter's birthday present," she said. "You said you'd return it. You never did." Sofia froze. "That's not true." Mrs. Chen opened her folder. Receipts, emails, screenshots. "It is, and I wasn't the only one." One by one, more neighbors stood. Lost medication, missing gifts, packages that vanished without explanation. The room turned into a chorus of quiet fury. Sofia's mask slipped. Her husband, Robert, tried to intervene. "This is defamation. None of this is admissible." Someone from the back shouted, "Then sue us all and see what color you turn next." Even the board members who'd once worshipped her looked away. Finally, Mrs. Langford, the treasurer, stood and said, "Motion for a vote of no confidence in President Sofia Wilson." Hands shot up everywhere, nearly unanimous. Sofia slammed her gavel down, streaking the table with purple. "You can't do this!" A voice called from the back, calm and clear. "You were the HOA, Sofia. "You're not anymore." Security escorted her out as laughter followed. The next morning, Maplewood woke up lighter. Someone had posted a meme, her purple-streaked face captioned, "Breaking news, HOA president tests new community safety measure." By afternoon, local reporters were parked near the entrance sign. The story hit the evening news under a perfect headline: HOA President's Sticky-Fingered Scandal, Purple Justice in Maplewood Estates. The camera showed Sofia leaving her house, scarf wrapped tight, stains still faintly glowing beneath. The anchor's voice almost cracked with amusement. She tried everything: makeup, solvents, paint thinner, but nothing could hide the guilt. The dye had done its job. Her husband filed a complaint for chemical assault. Police dismissed it after reviewing the footage. The report's title was beautiful in its simplicity: Property Defense Incident, No Charges Filed. For the first time in years, Maplewood Estates felt free. Within days, the HOA board voted to remove Sofia permanently, but it didn't stop there. During an internal audit, they found missing funds, tens of thousands of dollars in fake invoices signed by her alone, checks written to cash, some even to her own address. When the news broke, it went national. The clip of her standing at the HOA meeting, purple-stained hands trembling, played on repeat across social media. Someone remixed it into a dance video called Purple Karma. A week later, her husband's law firm announced he was taking an indefinite leave to focus on family matters. Everyone knew what that meant. Soon after, police charged her with mail theft, fraud, and embezzlement. She turned herself in wearing gloves and heavy foundation. The camera flashes caught everything: the faint lavender tint along her jawline, the tightness in her smile. The headline that night was perfect: Purple-handed HOA president faces federal mail theft charges. I watched from my living room, coffee in hand, the same spot where I'd first seen her steal from me. The porch light glowed softly outside. George texted, "You see this?" "You did it," I typed back. "No, she did it to herself." 2 weeks later, a moving truck pulled into her driveway. Movers carried out furniture, boxes, even the gaudy portrait of her hanging over the staircase. Sofia stood there in oversized sunglasses, hair tied back, sleeves long enough to hide what color remained. As they loaded the last box, she turned toward my house. For a moment, our eyes met. There was no rage this time, only exhaustion. Maybe regret. But it was too late for all of that. She got in her car and drove away. The once white SUV still had faint purple handprints on the door, a stain that would never quite fade. After she left, Maplewood breathed again. The new HOA board elected Mrs. Chen as president. George became head of community safety, though safety now mostly meant organizing barbecues and poker nights. For the first time, HOA meetings ended with laughter instead of tension. Mrs. Chen even introduced a new policy: shared package lockers for every block. "No more stolen deliveries," she said, grinning. "And no more purple presidents either." The crowd roared. Weeks passed. Life settled back into something beautifully ordinary. I'd wake early, drink my coffee, and watch the mail truck roll through. Packages stayed where they belonged. People waved to each other again. Kids rode their bikes without fear. Sofia became a cautionary tale, immortalized in memes and local gossip. Someone printed shirts that read, "Keep your hands off my packages, hack purple justice." Her trial came quickly. She pleaded guilty to mail theft, misdemeanor fraud, and misuse of HOA funds. Her lawyer husband negotiated a plea deal: a year of probation, restitution, and 100 hours of community service. I went to the sentencing, mostly out of curiosity. The courtroom was small, quiet, smelling faintly of paper and disinfectant. Sofia sat at the defendant's table, hair dyed darker, face pale. She looked smaller somehow, like the power had been drained out of her. The judge read the charges, then looked directly at her. "Mrs. Wilson, you held a position of trust," he said. "And you abused that trust. This isn't about a prank gone wrong. It's about integrity. You made your neighbors fear the very system meant to protect them." Sofia's voice was barely a whisper. "I only wanted order," the judge sighed. "Order without fairness is tyranny." When the verdict came, the room was silent, not in shock, but in quiet satisfaction. Justice didn't roar that day, it whispered. As we left, she approached me. "John," she said softly, "I wanted to say I'm sorry." I studied her face. There was pride there still, but also something new. Defeat. "I believe you," I said. "But sorry doesn't unsteal what's gone." She nodded and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw her. Within a week, a "for sale" sign went up on her lawn. A month later, a young family moved in. A couple in their 30s, 2 kids, a golden retriever that barked every time the mail truck arrived. Their laughter spilled into the street like fresh air. At the next HOA meeting, Mrs. Chen smiled at me. "Don't thank me for cleaning up Maplewood," I said. "Thank gravity. Everything that goes up eventually comes down." The room erupted in laughter. As time passed, the neighborhood healed. People stopped whispering. The fear that had choked Maplewood vanished, replaced by community, real community. One evening I sat on my porch, beer in hand, watching the sunset fade over the rooftops. George raised his bottle. "To poetic justice," he said. I clinked mine against his. "And to purple dye, the great equalizer," he laughed. "Think she'll ever come back?" "Not unless she wants to repaint the whole town." Weeks turned into months. Life was quiet again. Peaceful. Then one afternoon, I found an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just a single card inside. Neat cursive handwriting, "You were right. Some stains don't fade, but some people do learn. SW no threats. No excuses." Just that. I folded the note and tucked it into the same drawer where I'd kept the old footage, the evidence that started it all. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder, because this wasn't just about a thief or an HOA tyrant. It was about what happens when people let fear disguise itself as order, when silence becomes the weapon that lets bullies thrive. After Sofia was gone, people started talking again. Kids laughed louder. Neighbors shared coffee instead of complaints. For the first time, Maplewood felt like the dream it had been sold as. One evening, a new neighbor waved from across the street. "Hey, you're the guy who caught the purple lady, right?" I laughed. "Guilty." She smiled. "Thanks for making this place feel safe." "Just doing my civic duty," I said. When she turned away, I looked down at the same porch steps where all of this began, the spot where Sofia once stole from me and where she'd unknowingly set her own trap in motion. Justice hadn't come from the system. It came from persistence, creativity, and refusing to stay quiet. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I whispered to myself, "Some paint fades, but accountability sticks forever." If you've ever dealt with a neighbor like Sofia or faced a system stacked against you, remember, you don't need revenge. You just need a plan. And maybe a little purple dye. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had your own HOA nightmare? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story of karma, creativity, and comeuppance, hit that subscribe button. Because in this neighborhood, poetic justice never sleeps.